this week we have Anil Reddy, who's the founder of Lollypop Design. This podcast now has a sponsor, but instead of पैसे मैंने ली है तुम्हारे लिए खास 3 स्कॉलरशिप फ्रॉम 10K डिजाइनर्स इन देयर न्यू कोहर्ट. ठीक है, तो भाई तुम्हारे जब इतनी मेहनत करके आए तो तुम भी जाओ, सिंपल डिस्क्रिप्शन बॉक्स में फॉर्म है, उसको भर दो. तो मिलते हैं दिसंबर एंड के बाद नए कोहर्ट में.
Hey Rahul, how are you doing? Thank you so much for this podcast or an interview. Wonderful talking to you.
I'm doing good. I hope you're also doing good. Do you want to add anything into this introduction?
Nothing much. I think this is the best way to reach out to people. I'm not an influencer where I keep recording videos. So people like you, when you interview me, this is the only way the other designers get to know me well. So thank you so much for this interview.
No, the pleasure is all mine. So we'll start with the main question of the format, the title of this podcast. How did you become a designer?
Okay, I didn't become a designer. I wanted to become an artist. So
Okay.
as a kid, like any other designer, we all have a similar stories where we start with doodling, sketching, and eventually from there we branched out to become a designer. So my design or my story as an artist started back in 90s when I was in school, and actually 80s when I was in school. So back then I was known for my sketches and stuff, and my school used to encourage my art and other stuff. So I used to participate in a lot of drawing competitions and stuff, and I won a couple of them. I was not very good academically, not the brightest bulb in my class, but still managed to bring people's attention through my artworks. And back then, I didn't know there was a career called designer. All I knew was I want to become an artist. I want to keep painting, keep sketching, and eventually, when I become famous, sell my artworks. And then my during my 10th, there was this drawing competition in Karnataka Chitrakala Parishad. Back then, it was one of the top design colleges in Bangalore. So I participated, and then that's when I got to know that there is a college dedicated for design and art. And then during 10th, I started preparing myself to go and join that college, where I didn't get the seat because the fees was too expensive. So I ended up in an art school. So my design journey started right after 10th. I got to know that if I excel in art, eventually I can get inside graphic design, and if I learn computers, then I can build a career as a designer. I think that's where it started.
Okay. So, like, I'll go a little bit back even in that story, right? So, you said that you were an artist, right? Did you have someone in the house who was an influence, or you were just in the drawing class and experimenting, and that made, you know what, I like doing this. I would love to do this for the rest of my life.
No one in my family. My cousin was an artist, a designer, and he influenced me. But I used to meet him once in a while. Apart from that, at home, no one was an artist. My mom says my dad was into art and stuff, but I don't remember. I lost him when I was 4 years old. So my first introduction or my first artistic thing happened when we bunch of friends sat down to sketch a pigeon, and none of our drawing was closer to what it was. I never
To an
looked
actual
like
pigeon.
a pigeon. And then I think rest of them gave up, and I continued sketching until it started looking like a pigeon. And I tried next day, and then I came back and I kept on trying until the drawing started looking like a pigeon. I think that's when there was an art. I realized there was an artist inside me. The sketches got better and better as next day I came back and I tried again. It was shaping up, and it was started looking like a pigeon. And yeah, that's when an artist was born.
So you started practicing, and obviously started looking like you got results, and you're like, yeah, this is something I'm enjoying while making this. Makes sense. So in 10th, you were brought up in Bangalore only.
Yeah, born and brought up in
Nice.
Bangalore. Now what they call it as Bengaluru. I still call it Bangalore, but it's always Bangalore for me.
Okay, so you 10th, you wait, if I'm not wrong, you did 11th, 12th, or did you went into different college after 10th?
No, that's the maximum I could study. After 10th, by God's grace, I passed. I got, we have first class, second class, and third class, right? If you take third class and divide it by three, the third one was mine. So I just passed in 10th. And right after 10th, I joined Ken School of Art called Ken School of Art. And I knew studies was not for me, and I didn't want to study further. I used to fall sick as soon as I sit in front of books. So that was a good decision. I went. It was not called plus one or plus two. It was diploma in arts, and then I did 2 years in Ken School. That was a diploma, and then 3 years degree.
Ken school 2 years. Like, was it a traditional art like degree where they teach you sketching?
Yeah, it was a traditional art, and one of the best things that happened in my life, and one of the reason why I still sketch, I still doodle, and I'm still hands-on with work. All the credits goes to Ken School of Art, because the 2 years of training at Ken School, right? It's something that I still practice it. And traditional art, where they teach you life study, still life, composition, perspective, and a little bit of screen printing, and other mixed media stuff. So that 2 years of training myself to become an artist, and 3 years of visual communication.
Oh, okay. So I'm gonna assume that design you got to know in when you went to the visual communication degree.
Yeah. So you can call it as a proper military training before going to the war.
Okay,
So
so walk us through the degree, because like I talked with someone who recently did like in 16 from IIMB design course, right? So their journey was very different, and I would love to know how it was in 90s and that time, how they were teaching design in that time, right? Because tools were different, softwares were different, even machines were very different that time.
So let me tell you this: 1995 is when I got into college, and
I'll add something there. That was the year I was born. Not to make you feel old, but like now it's feeling so surreal to me.
you can edit this part, or else it'll make me feel so. Anyways, keep it. I'm just
Yeah.
saying. Um, the 3 years of degree had no computers, and I was not. They never introduced us to any computers. Our college didn't have a single computer. Everything
Mm-hmm.
was handmade. Artworks were handmade, and the logos were handmade, brochures were handmade, and we used mixed techniques like screen printing, bromide negatives, and click photographs. And we used to create artwork, what we call the print press lithography and all this stuff,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes.
We used to, that
I
was the
mean,
kind of
many
a,
of many of my viewers won't have idea about that. I'll be very honest. They are very young on the Figma generation,
yeah.
but that's something that's very
Everything
fascinating.
was
Yeah.
handmade, like a typesetting, right? We were asked to put all the letters in blocks and feed it to the machine, then roll paper on it so that the paper prints. So yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. So you did 3 years of degree, and then the process was.
3 years of degree, not knowing what this degree would lead me to. There was a lot of fear when I was studying, because my seniors and even my super seniors who passed from the same college had no job. So most of the batchmates, my senior batchmates, were jobless, and they used to come sit in the canteen and scare us, saying that there's absolutely no job. You rather discontinue this, and there is something called call centers. It was slowly popping up in Bangalore, and they were recommending us to go and join call centers and build a career there. And few from my batch quit and went there, but a couple of them stuck around.
How was like a life after degree?
So life after degree, until I started working when I was 16 years old. So as an artist, I thought it was easy for me to go get a job outside. The financial conditions at home was not that great, so my mom asked me to go figure out my own fees, and she was the only a person working at home and trying to get my sister and myself educated. So I started working at very young age, and I went to this newspaper printing agency called Dinatante. It's a Tamil newspaper. I asked for a caricature job, and they said there's no jobs. So I ended up getting a cleaning job over there. I worked as a cleaner for 2 years, and that's when I paid my own fees studying at Kent School of Art. Then I saved up a little. I used to do crazy freelance work. I used to do artworks, paint walls, do murals, any functions, anything, anywhere that and where artwork is required. I used to go. I used to do politician cutouts, what we see today, right? That huge digital
Yeah, yeah.
printouts, right? I
In
used to do
movies.
that by hand, and and I thought I will continue having a career like this, but it's very unpredictable. At times, I used to get projects. At times, I used to be dry for months together. So after college, until the last year of college, I was not sure. I was like a little confused where I
Hmm.
should get into. Should I get into graphic design? But graphic design requires computer knowledge, because by end of my college, that is around 1999 and 2000, right? People were talking about computers, people were talking about pagemaker, photoshop and all that, but I had no clue what it was. So I always wanted to be a traditional artist and a traditional designer,
Artist.
and I didn't want to use computers. Actually, I was bitching about computers those days. I used to say computers is not great, and there's always a value for handmade stuff. So I tried everything, then I couldn't build a career in it. I also tried working in movies as a background artist. Like I put a set, like a massive set for one of the Tamil movie. That's when I
Okay.
went to Chennai and worked there for some time. And it was a song sequence for a very well-known movie. And I worked for almost 2 months, and then after that, I didn't get paid for 2 months. I came back to Bangalore very disappointed, and I was very close to giving up art and design, and because I tried everything and nothing worked for me. Then I managed to finish my degree, but one of my friend introduced me to a company where they were looking for an artist who could draw on computers. So that was my
Digital
first.
drawings. Okay.
I actually sat in front of a computer. Until then, I used to hate that word computer, because back then, right, people wouldn't allow you inside if you're wearing shoes. So
Yes, that was a very big. Like in schools, we saw that. Like they
yeah,
would just like, remove your shoes outside. Computers
yeah.
are here.
So I went there. I thought, let me give it a shot. So I went there, and my boss asked me to draw on Wacom. So Wacom back then was connected with wire. Even your pen was
Correct.
connected. So if I draw something on Wacom, it would take a couple of seconds to appear on the screen, and there was a lag
Hmm.
between the device and the monitor. So I drew, and I was shocked to see that I could draw on a piece of a board and it appears on a monitor. So I was like, "What in the world is this? Is it like a?" It was like a magic. And then I continued. I was sketching the whole day. I was super excited, and my boss liked it. He said, "Do you want a job? Do you want to stay back and work here?" I said, "I'll work." Then
Okay.
that was my first entry as an artist in the digital world, and I started sketching. And I'm sure people who are listening to this podcast, if you know about this portal called 123greetings.com, it was very famous e-card portal back in 90s and early 2000, where people used to
Mm-hmm.
exchange e-cards. So I used to sketch. I sketched most of the cards over there, and that was my first entry into the digital world.
Realm.
Then from there, I think it's the curiosity that got me into exploring different things in the computer world. First is I used to only sketch and give those sketches to the next bunch of people to animate it. Then I was curious
Correct.
to go and find out how are they animating it. They used to use this tool called Flash, which is a macromedia product which Adobe acquired and killed it for whatever reason.
Worried about Figma, but yeah.
Yeah, I hope they spare Figma. Uh, So I learned animation. I learned Flash. Through Flash, I got into Dreamweaver. From Dreamweaver, I got into Fireworks. Was one of the top uh, tools. Then from Fireworks, I learned Photoshop, and then everything got me back to coding. So then I got into coding, and a person who used to bitch about computers now suddenly is sitting and coding. I started with Java, and then simple HTML. Back then, there was no CSS, and then got into action scripting in Flash, and then got into Flex in Flash, and XML, XSLT, all coding languages. So I was one designer back then who busted all the myth where even designers can code.
Yeah, because I was thinking, this is something very fascinating to me to understand is that you started as a traditional artist, hitting computers, right? Then I understood that when you draw on it, you saw that, okay, now even hand drawn stuff is possible on digital. The format is changing, but the art and the talent is still there. Then you went into like coding. Even let's say that you started coding because you wanted to create stuff in Flash, right? So it was still connected to designing in any way. But then you went XML and very, very deep into coding. Right? Like so, like if I think at that time, if I would ask you when you were after Ken school, right, that would you ever go into coding? You would obviously at that time say no, like I'm an artist, right? But at this time, the person, if he looks back, it's totally different story. So you worked there, that company at how long? The first.
I was there for a year and a half, and
So in a year and a
actually
half,
year and a half
you.
as a full time, and year and 1 year as a part time. Almost years and a half I worked, and then I went to Saudi Arabia, and I got a
Okay.
job there. I was in need of money, and there are a lot of financial commitments at home. So I left the country so that I can earn more money. Back then, my salary was 2,500 rupees as a designer and a coder, and later I got 3,500. That was not enough to keep everything going. So I went to Saudi Arabia. In Saudi, from 3,500, my salary went to 40,000 rupees. So, which was like a huge, big money back those days. Imagine 2001 earning 40,000. It's a dream salary. So, yeah, I went there and finished all the financial commitments at home, and also saved up a little money to go and study further in New Zealand.
Also, the work which you're doing, the job profile was designer or engineer, what it was.
It was no, no, I all my work life, right. I have one title, but I play multiple role having that title. Sometimes it is graphic designer. Sometimes they call me web designer, and then back in those days there was another title called GUI designer. GUI stands for graphical user interface, which we
Oh,
call
okay.
which that graphic is removed. Now we call it as user interface.
User interface,
So
yes.
that was one of my title that I was carrying for some time. Then digital designer, and then UX, UI, all the fancy titles that we have today. Um, um, yeah, I think by then I fell in love with technology, and technology became my canvas, and I loved painting on it. And every day I used to explore new things, and I used to be very, very hands on learning technology and also learning design tools.
So, if I can ask, how did you find this job, right? Because people who will be watching, they'll be really interested in knowing how did you went like from India to. First of all, at that time, I feel it was very tough to go outside of India, right? Than right now, and also finding a design specific a job which you want to do is also, I'm gonna assume, was more tougher than that.
I think how I landed the job was I designed a website for ITPL. ITPL stands for Information Technology Park. ITPL Bangalore, which is in Whitefield. So I designed the first website for ITPL, which became viral those days, and the entire Bangalore was talking about it. That's when media was calling Bangalore as the Silicon City
Silicon
or
Valley.
Internet City, whatever they were giving the title to Bangalore. So that a lot of media also started writing about that website. So I designed and developed it using HTML, and I implemented Java applet in the banner and some graphic things that I did. So people loved it. And some sheikh in Dubai saw in Saudi Arabia saw that, and he came down to Bangalore, and we happened to like the website, and he found out which agency did that and who was the designer behind it.
It was a designer.
And luckily, when he called my company, the receptionist thought it was my friend, and she gave the phone to me, and
Oh,
I attended his call. Then he said, "Did you design the website?" I said, "Yes." I said, "I want to meet you." Yeah. Then I went and met him. Then he said, "Will you come to Saudi Arabia?" I was like, I don't want to go anywhere. I'm very happy here." He said, "Saudi Arabia is a very big country and very rich country." And he asked me, "What is your salary here?" Then I said, 3,500. He said, "I'll give you 40,000." I said, "I'll come tonight." So then I said, "Let's go." So that's how I ended up in Saudi Arabia.
cool. So you went to Saudi Arabia. You work there for how many years?
It was a 2 years contract. So as soon as I landed there, they took my passport and gave it back after 2 years.
Oh, that. I mean, I can't even fathom the like. How would you have felt right when you went there? You had everything. I'm gonna assume that like you had good salary and everything, but even like
Yeah.
you can't come back to home for 2 years. It just feels different.
Yeah, it was difficult to accept the fact because they never mentioned about it, about not letting me go for 2 years. But the saddest part was taking my passport at the airport. So as soon as I landed there,
Oh, they didn't even let you go home or stay. They just like on airport only.
so that's the rule. But now I guess it's changed. Back then, if visas are sponsored by another human, that human takes your
Oh,
passport and keeps
okay.
it until you finish the contract. So I stayed for 2 years. I finished my contract, and then I came back to India. I saved some money, which I used it to go and study further in New Zealand.
Okay, tell us the about that story. Like, which course did you choose? How did you find about that course?
So there were two things that I learned the day I was introduced to computers. One is as an artist, I figured out all the design tools, and as a technology person, I started coding. So I
Correct.
felt that I know everything. I know technology, I know design, and there is nothing much to learn. Then, when I was
Correct.
working in Saudi, there are a few brands that I worked, which I realized that you also need to know the other side of it, which is the business, what we call it as
Okay.
strategy. So you should know the strategy side of the business and also the psychology side of the business. So I thought I should spend some time learning this, and then I picked a course in New Zealand. My friend was studying there, and he recommended that you should come and join this college. It's called Design and
Got
Arts
it.
College of New Zealand in Christchurch, and I applied and I got some concession on the fees, and luckily the person who was responsible for that college was traveling in India, and I met her in person, and she
Okay.
said you should come to New Zealand and study there. Masters in Media and Communication, and which was
Oh,
they touched upon all the topics, and it was a 1 year course, and it was fun. I think there's another part of my life where I explored other side of design, which is the psychology and the strategy side of the design.
so started from art, traditional art, went into coding, technical side of things, designing GUI.
GUI.
Then, then I'm gonna use this term a lot on Twitter now. Then, then went into strategy and that side of design. One thing, Anil, I would love to know is that when people will hear this story, right, they'll think there are a lot of luck involved in this, right? For example, your website going viral, the Saudi Arabia people liking the website, you applying to this web college in New Zealand, and the person who is running it being in India, right? But here I feel people don't understand like how the surface of luck works, right? And I just wanted to you to talk about that topic because I feel that people nowadays needs to know that every single thing we do in life, for example, for you, right, that website which you have designed, which was liked by Saudi Arabia folks, right? How much effort did you put in, right? How much perfection, how much passion was in that project?
See, back in those days, right, we didn't have YouTube, we didn't have websites that could tell us the shortcuts.
Correct.
Every learning came from book. So you basically get a book and
Mm-hmm.
go to the chapters and keep learning, keep experimenting it. And again, the expectation was not too much, unlike today, right? Today, clients
Mm-hmm.
expect, and also the audience
Correct.
expect. Back then, anything you do is a magic. So even we had that curiosity because everything was new to us. The computer, also the hardware was new. The software that we
Mm.
were exploring was new. So with so many new things around us, I think that got us excited. So the first design that I did, I liked it. Then we coded using a simple table cells and rows using HTML, inline HTML. Then I
Mm-hmm.
thought I should go beyond this. I should add something else. Then I kept on adding it. I doubt if I followed any design principles, but I just built everything out of excitement. Like, इसको भी डाल दो, ये animation भी कर दो. The website, I'm sure if the website is live today, people will laugh at it. But back in those days, it was one of the most happening website. I think the passion and the curiosity, I think this is what led us to build something magical those days.
Those are the two main ingredients of this whole
Yeah.
recipe. Okay, coming back to like you completed college from New Zealand, you came back to India, if I'm not wrong.
Yep. Came back to
And
India for holiday. Then I went back to
okay,
New Zealand. I got my dream job. I used to form a
oh, okay,
company and I ended up getting a job there. And then I went to Queenstown. I worked there for some time and then came to Auckland. My entire New Zealand journey was I was there in New Zealand for 10 years. Studied 1 year and worked 9 years.
9 years. So you're back in India at in which year?
2011.
So 11 you came back. Okay, like computers were there, but obviously not that household yet.
2011 was
So
big. Computers were big. Smartphones were already there, not as bad as
oh,
what it
okay,
is today. But yeah, Android was there, iOS was there, iPod was there, and everything was there. But the reason I came back was I felt that
mm-hmm.
I know all the four aspects of design. That is the strategy, psychology, technology, and art. Then I thought I should come and bring this back to India and see what I can build out of this. So I uh, started Lollipop. With that, I started Lollipop. Can you just hold on, guys?
Yeah, sure.
Yep. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. Okay, so you started Lollipop in 2011,
Sorry. Go
right?
ahead. Go ahead, Ram.
Uh, yeah, yeah. So you started Lollipop in 2011. Tell us
Yes.
the story behind the name.
2011 is when I had this idea of starting something, and
Okay.
I didn't know what I wanted to start. I
Mm-hmm.
was whether should I start a training institution where I thought I should train people up with whatever I learned. Then I realized that I really suck at training people. I'll end up beating people if they don't learn properly from me. So the obvious choice was to start a design studio. So started a small studio from home as a freelancer, and then slowly came out and gave it a name, gave it some shape to it, and built a story
Mm-hmm.
for it, and called it Lollipop. So the name Lollipop was this company was called Pixie Tree. It was a
Okay.
random name that we came up because I wanted to go and meet a client and introduce through a company, not as an individual.
Correct.
So then I didn't like the name Pixie Tree. It really didn't connect with what I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
become. And my son's first school, right, the daycare that he went to was called
Correct.
Lollipop. He used to always say
Oh.
lollipop, lollipop, and there's a song Lollipop, lollipop. It's like a rhyming song. He used to often sing that song, and very cutely he used to call lollipop top top.
I have the poem kind of song, yes.
And yeah, that stuck. And I told that we should call this company Lollipop. And we
Hmm.
started writing a story around it. That Lollipop is the only candy where it is not just a dish, it is an experience. So every time you finish a lollipop, it leaves a mark on your tongue. So similar to our design experiences. So we should leave a mark on society, people, business. So that's when Lollipop was started, and we built a story around it.
That's interesting. Like, so you started Lollipop, and I have seen like you have worked with most of the bigger names now in India. You currently obviously help them out, right? So now, how big is the team right now?
I think we are 260 across
People, right?
eight centers.
Okay, you started it alone, or did you have a co-founder or someone in that time?
I started alone, then my wife joined in to help me out with the
Yeah.
operations and stuff. It was her and myself. She handling the operations and me into design.
Thank you, Anil. I think this covers mostly. If you want to add anything to designers who's watching this, to anyone who want to become a designer who's watching this, feel free to anything. If you want to plug in something, if you're hiring for design interns, have something on that, just post, and hopefully this will help someone.
Mm, I think becoming a designer is it's a journey, and I would like to tell all the people who are want to get into this domain or people who are already in this domain, it's a never-ending process. You will never become a complete designer. You always have that few things that you still have to learn, and to learn that you have to unlearn. Like, to get into computers, I had to unlearn art and accept computer as is, because in the art world you can draw, paint whatever you want. In a computer
Correct.
world back in early 2000, right, you can't do that because hardware would limit you from doing that. So I had to unlearn art and learn technology and paint within the limits of the technology. So I think this unlearning,
Hmm.
learning is a continuous process. For example, let's take graphic designers who became web designer. They had to unlearn some
Correct.
graphic habits and learn web
Yes.
habits. And from web to UX UI, they have to unlearn some web and learn UX UI. I think this is a continuous process. And today we are in this beautiful time where there's plenty opportunity for designers. And as a responsible designers, we'll have to be very, very mindful about how we look at design as a career. I see a lot of people just move in to become a designer, do a crash course.
Hmm.
And even education institutions have started promoting design as something that you can learn overnight. I think these kind of messages we should be mindful about. And even the influencers, when they talk about design, instead of just making content for the sake of it, they should be little mindful about what is that content and how is it going to reach people. I have seen people saying
Correct.
that you don't have to learn art to become a designer. Sometimes they say that you don't need to learn technology to become a designer. Then if you don't need to learn anything, then what is that you need to learn to become a designer? So the question will always come back to, like, what is that you have to learn to become a designer? The answer is you have to learn everything to become a designer. You have to learn to be a human first, and you have to learn to have an appetite to take risk. You have to learn
Hmm.
to accept things. You have to learn every aspect of a design, from the psychology side of the design, from the business side of the design, from the technology side of the design. You have to learn these things to become a designer, not just say that I'm a UX, I have nothing to do with graphics. I'm a graphic designer, I have nothing to do with research. I think if we go with this mindset, right, we will
Hmm.
never become a true designer. So a true designer is someone who practices everything: the science side of the design, the art side of the design, the math side of the design, the technology side of the design. The one who practices this will become a true designer. And this is the message that I want to send. Design
Uh-huh.
is very large practice, and become a true designer, and
Ex-
you will have so much fun, not just in career, um, even throughout. you will end up celebrating design each and every day. And this is my standard quote. I always say, celebrate design.
Thank you so much, Anil. Thank you so much for doing this. Thank you so much for agreeing for doing this. Thank you so much for telling the story.